I eliminated chronic constipation and transformed my bowel function in 21 days. My transit time improved from 72 hours to 18 hours, and my Bristol stool scale score normalized from a consistent type 1 to a healthy type 4. I'm a genetics professor at Harvard Medical School studying metabolic regulation and gut-brain axis physiology. Today, I'm sharing the exact 8-step protocol I developed after reviewing the clinical literature on intestinal motility and testing each intervention on myself with measurable outcomes. Constipation affects approximately 16% of adults globally, with prevalence doubling after age 60. Yet conventional approaches, fiber supplements, stimulant laxatives, and vague advice to drink more water, fail to address the underlying mechanisms. What I discovered through both research and personal implementation is that hard stools and sluggish motility represent a convergence of multiple physiological dysfunctions: disrupted gut microbiome composition, inadequate bile flow, compromised intestinal mucus production, dysregulated peristaltic signaling, and insufficient hydration at the cellular level. The colon is not simply a passive tube waiting for waste. It is a dynamic organ with its own nervous system, the enteric nervous system, containing over 100 million neurons. These neurons coordinate the complex muscular contractions, called peristalsis, that propel intestinal contents forward. When this system malfunctions, transit slows, water is excessively reabsorbed, and stool becomes hard and difficult to pass. Understanding these mechanisms transformed my approach from symptomatic management to root cause resolution. Mechanism number 1: magnesium and osmotic hydration. The first intervention I implemented was magnesium citrate supplementation, and the mechanistic rationale is compelling. Magnesium functions as an osmotic agent in the intestinal lumen, drawing water into the colon through osmosis. This increases stool water content, softens consistency, and stimulates stretch receptors that trigger peristaltic contractions. But magnesium's effects extend beyond simple osmosis. Research published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrates that magnesium deficiency, affecting approximately 50% of Americans, directly impairs smooth muscle function throughout the gastrointestinal tract. Magnesium is a cofactor for over 300 enzymatic reactions, including those governing muscle contraction and relaxation. Without adequate magnesium, the coordinated muscular waves that propel intestinal contents become sluggish and uncoordinated. The form of magnesium matters enormously. Magnesium oxide, the cheapest and most common form, has only 4% bioavailability and primarily acts as an osmotic laxative with minimal systemic absorption. Magnesium citrate offers approximately 25% bioavailability, providing both osmotic effects in the gut and systemic repletion. Magnesium glycinate offers the highest bioavailability at approximately 80%, but with less pronounced osmotic effect. My protocol: I take 400 milligrams magnesium citrate each evening, approximately 30 minutes before bed. This timing capitalizes on the body's natural circadian rhythm. Peristaltic activity increases during sleep and peaks in early morning. The magnesium draws water into the colon overnight, and I wake with a natural urge to evacuate. Within 5 days of implementation, my morning bowel movements became predictable and effortless. Mechanism number 2: bile flow optimization and fat-soluble nutrient absorption. Bile is profoundly underappreciated in discussions of intestinal motility. Secreted by the liver and stored in the gallbladder, bile serves as a natural laxative. When bile enters the intestine, it stimulates peristalsis directly through activation of bile acid receptors on intestinal epithelial cells. These receptors, particularly TGR5, trigger the release of serotonin from enterochromaffin cells, which then activates the enteric nervous system to coordinate propulsive contractions. Research published in Gastroenterology demonstrates that individuals with sluggish bile flow exhibit significantly reduced colonic transit times and increased constipation prevalence. The bile acid malabsorption that occurs with gallbladder dysfunction or removal often results in either diarrhea or constipation, depending on the degree of dysregulation. Bile flow can be enhanced through several mechanisms. Bitter compounds stimulate bile production and release through activation of bitter taste receptors, T2Rs, in the gut. These receptors trigger cholecystokinin release, which contracts the gallbladder and relaxes the sphincter of Oddi, allowing bile to flow into the duodenum. My protocol: I consume 1 tablespoon of high-quality extra virgin olive oil each morning on an empty stomach, followed by the juice of half a lemon. The fat in olive oil triggers cholecystokinin release and gallbladder contraction, while the citric acid and bitter compounds in lemon stimulate additional bile flow. I also incorporate bitter greens, arugula, dandelion greens, radicchio, into my first meal. Within 10 days of implementing this protocol, I noticed a significant improvement in the ease and completeness of evacuation. Additionally, I take 500 milligrams ox bile supplement with any meal containing substantial fat. For individuals without a gallbladder or with documented bile insufficiency, this provides exogenous bile acids that restore the natural laxative effect. Mechanism number 3: prebiotic fiber and microbiome modulation. The gut microbiome plays a central role in intestinal motility through multiple mechanisms. Beneficial bacteria ferment prebiotic fibers to produce short-chain fatty acids, primarily butyrate, propionate, and acetate. Butyrate serves as the primary fuel source for colonocytes, the cells lining the colon. Without adequate butyrate, colonocytes become energy depleted, mucus production decreases, and the intestinal barrier weakens. Research published in Cell Host and Microbe demonstrates that short-chain fatty acids directly stimulate colonic motility through activation of free fatty acid receptors, FFAR2 and FFAR3, on enteroendocrine cells. This triggers the release of peptide YY and glucagon-like peptide 1, which modulate gastrointestinal transit. The type of fiber matters significantly. Soluble fermentable fibers, found in foods like Jerusalem artichokes, garlic, onions, leeks, and chicory root, serve as preferred substrates for beneficial bacteria. These prebiotic fibers selectively feed bifidobacteria and lactobacilli species that produce favorable short-chain fatty acid profiles. In contrast, insoluble fiber from wheat bran adds bulk but provides minimal fermentation substrate. My protocol: I consume 30 to 40 grams of diverse prebiotic fiber daily from whole food sources. My morning meal includes 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed, providing both soluble fiber and lignans, while my evening meal includes a generous serving of cooked and cooled potatoes or rice, providing resistant starch, a potent prebiotic. I also supplement with 5 grams of partially hydrolyzed guar gum, a soluble fiber shown in alimentary pharmacology and therapeutics, to significantly improve stool consistency and frequency without the bloating associated with other fiber supplements. The key is gradual introduction. I increased fiber intake by approximately 5 grams per week to allow the microbiome to adapt and prevent excessive gas production. Within 14 days, my microbiome composition shifted, evidenced by reduced bloating and improved stool consistency. Mechanism number 4: hydration timing and electrolyte balance. The conventional advice to drink more water for constipation is overly simplistic. Hydration status affects stool consistency only when the body is actually dehydrated. Simply consuming excess water does not translate to increased stool water content. The kidneys efficiently excrete surplus. However, the timing and composition of fluid intake does matter. Consuming 16 to 20 ounces of room temperature water immediately upon waking stimulates the gastrocolic reflex, a neurological response where gastric distension triggers colonic contractions. This reflex is strongest in the morning when cortisol levels peak, and leveraging it can establish regular morning bowel movements. Electrolyte balance is equally critical. Sodium, potassium, and chloride gradients drive water transport across the intestinal epithelium. Inadequate electrolytes, common with low-carbohydrate diets or excessive sweating, can impair intestinal water balance despite adequate fluid intake. Research published in the American Journal of Gastroenterology demonstrates that warm water enhances gastric motility more effectively than cold water. The temperature appears to relax smooth muscle in the gastrointestinal tract, facilitating transit. My protocol: immediately upon waking, before any food or supplements, I drink 20 ounces of warm water with 1/4 teaspoon of unrefined sea salt and a squeeze of lemon. The warmth stimulates the gastrocolic reflex, the sodium supports intestinal water transport, and the lemon provides gentle bitter stimulation. I then wait 30 minutes before consuming coffee or food. This simple intervention alone transformed my morning routine and established predictable bowel function within 7 days. Mechanism number 5: probiotic strains and motility enhancement. Specific probiotic strains have demonstrated direct effects on intestinal motility independent of their general microbiome benefits. These motility-enhancing probiotics work through production of neurotransmitters, modulation of intestinal serotonin, and direct interaction with the enteric nervous system. Bifidobacterium lactis BB12 and Bifidobacterium animalis DN173010 have been extensively studied for constipation. A meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that these strains significantly reduced intestinal transit time by an average of 12 hours and increased stool frequency. The mechanism involves serotonin modulation. Approximately 95% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut, where it serves as a critical neurotransmitter for peristaltic regulation. Beneficial bacteria influence serotonin production by enterochromaffin cells through multiple pathways, including short-chain fatty acid production and direct tryptophan metabolism. Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG has demonstrated effects on intestinal tight junction proteins and mucus production, both critical for proper stool formation and transit. Research in gut microbes shows this strain increases mucin gene expression, enhancing the mucus layer that lubricates stool passage. My protocol: I take a multi-strain probiotic containing Bifidobacterium lactis BB12, Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG, and Bifidobacterium longum BB536, providing a total of 50 billion CFU daily. I take this on an empty stomach in the morning with my warm water and lemon, approximately 30 minutes before food. I also consume naturally fermented foods, sauerkraut, kimchi, and full-fat yogurt daily to provide additional probiotic diversity and prebiotic substrate. Within 10 days of implementing targeted probiotic therapy, my stool consistency improved from type 2 to type 4 on the Bristol scale. Mechanism number 6: motility activators and prokinetic compounds. Several natural compounds demonstrate prokinetic effects, meaning they actively stimulate gastrointestinal motility through direct pharmacological mechanisms. Understanding these allows for targeted intervention when other approaches require enhancement. Ginger, Zingiber officinale, contains gingerols and shogals that bind to serotonin receptors in the gut, stimulating gastric emptying and intestinal transit. Research published in the European Journal of Gastroenterology and Hepatology demonstrates that 1 gram of ginger significantly accelerates gastric emptying by 51% in healthy volunteers. Artichoke leaf extract contains cynarin and chlorogenic acid, which stimulate bile production and release while also exerting direct prokinetic effects. A study in Plant Foods for Human Nutrition showed that artichoke extract increased bile secretion by 127% and improved symptoms of functional dyspepsia, which frequently co-occurs with constipation. 5-HTP, 5-hydroxytryptophan, serves as the direct precursor to serotonin. In the gut, Increased serotonin availability enhances peristaltic activity through activation of 5-HT4 receptors on enteric neurons. Research in neurogastroenterology and motility demonstrates that 5-HT4 agonism accelerates colonic transit. My protocol: I incorporate fresh ginger daily, either as 1-inch sliced ginger steeped in hot water as tea or minced into my meals. I take 320 milligrams standardized artichoke leaf extract with my largest meal to enhance bile flow and support digestion. For periods of more significant sluggishness, I add 50 milligrams 5-HTP in the evening, which has the additional benefit of supporting sleep quality through conversion to melatonin. These interventions provided the additional prokinetic support that accelerated my transit time from 48 hours to 18 hours. Mechanism number 7: movement, posture, and mechanical stimulation. Physical movement and body positioning directly influence intestinal motility through mechanical stimulation and autonomic nervous system modulation. Sedentary behavior is strongly associated with constipation. Research in the Scandinavian Journal of Gastroenterology shows that physical activity reduces constipation risk by 44%. Walking activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest and digest functions, including intestinal motility. A 20-minute walk after meals significantly enhances gastric emptying and intestinal transit. The physical motion also provides direct mechanical massage to the intestines, stimulating peristalsis. Posture during defecation profoundly impacts the ease of evacuation. The puborectalis muscle forms a sling around the rectum, creating an anorectal angle that maintains continence. In a seated position, this angle is approximately 90 degrees, partially obstructing the rectal outlet. In a squatting position, the angle opens to approximately 126 degrees, straightening the pathway and facilitating complete evacuation. Research published in Digestive Diseases and Sciences demonstrates that squatting reduces defecation time by an average of 51 seconds and decreases subjective straining significantly. For those using Western toilets, a footstool that elevates the knees above hip level approximates the squatting position. My protocol: I walk for 20 to 30 minutes after my largest meal each day, which typically occurs in the early afternoon. This has become non-negotiable. The impact on digestion and motility is immediately noticeable. I also use a 7-inch footstool positioned at my toilet to elevate my knees, approximating a squatting position. This simple postural modification reduced my time to evacuation by approximately 40% and eliminated the sensation of incomplete emptying. Each morning, I also practice 5 minutes of abdominal self-massage. Lying on my back with knees bent, I apply gentle pressure in a clockwise motion following the path of the colon, ascending on the right, transverse across the upper abdomen, descending on the left. This manual stimulation encourages peristalsis and has become part of my morning bowel routine. Mechanism number 8: circadian rhythm optimization and meal timing. The gastrointestinal system operates on a circadian rhythm that profoundly influences motility. Peristaltic activity follows a diurnal pattern, with minimal activity during sleep and peak activity in the morning hours. Disrupting this rhythm through irregular meal timing, shift work, or excessive nighttime eating contributes to constipation. Research published in Gastroenterology demonstrates that the migrating motor complex, also known as the housekeeper wave, that clears residual food and bacteria from the small intestine, requires approximately 4 hours of fasting between meals to complete a full cycle. Constant snacking or frequent eating prevents MMC activation, allowing bacterial overgrowth and slowing transit. The morning cortisol surge naturally primes the gastrointestinal system for evacuation. Aligning food intake with this rhythm, eating the first meal after morning bowel movement rather than before, can enhance regularity. My protocol: I practice time-restricted feeding with a consistent 16-8 pattern. Eating window from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., Fasting window from 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. This ensures a complete overnight fast of at least 16 hours, allowing multiple MMC cycles and complete intestinal clearance. My morning routine of warm water, walking, and using the footstool occurs before breaking my fast, leveraging the natural morning motility peak. I consume my largest meal at midday when digestive capacity is highest, and my evening meal is smaller and completed at least 3 hours before sleep. Going to bed with an empty stomach prevents nocturnal digestion from disrupting sleep architecture, which itself influences morning bowel function. Within 14 days of implementing consistent meal timing, my morning bowel movements became as predictable as clockwork, occurring within 30 minutes of waking every day. My complete daily protocol: upon waking, 6 a.m., 20 ounces warm water with a quarter teaspoon sea salt and juice of half a lemon. 50 billion CFU multi-strain probiotic, BB12, LGG, BB536. 5 minutes abdominal self-massage, 20-minute morning walk or movement. Morning routine, 6:30 a.m. Use toilet with 7-inch footstool for optimal positioning. Allow adequate time without rushing or straining. First meal, 12 p.m. 1 tablespoon extra virgin olive oil taken before meal. Meal includes bitter greens, arugula, dandelion. 2 tablespoons ground flaxseed incorporated into meal. 320 milligrams artichoke leaf extract with meal. 500 milligrams ox bile with meal if fat content is substantial. Post-meal, 12:30 p.m., 20 to 30-minute walk. Evening meal, 6 p.m., moderate portion completed by 8 p.m. Includes resistant starch, cooked and cooled potato or rice. 5 grams partially hydrolyzed guar gum stirred into water. Before bed, 9:30 p.m., 400 milligrams magnesium citrate, ginger tea, 1 inch fresh ginger steeped 10 minutes. 50 milligrams 5-HTP, optional for enhanced support. My measured results, 21 days. Transit time, before, 72 hours, measured with activated charcoal marker. After, 18 hours. Bristol stool scale, before, type 1 to 2, hard lumps, sausage-shaped but lumpy. After, type 4, smooth, soft sausage or snake. Bowel movement frequency, before, every 2 to 3 days, unpredictable timing. After, daily, within 30 minutes of waking. Straining, before, significant straining required, 10 plus minutes to evacuate. After, no straining, complete evacuation in 2 to 3 minutes. Completeness of evacuation, before, persistent sensation of incomplete emptying. After, complete evacuation with no residual sensation. Abdominal bloating, before, moderate bloating, particularly evening. After, minimal bloating, flat abdomen by morning. Subjective well-being, dramatically improved energy and mental clarity. Elimination of afternoon fatigue previously attributed to digestion. Improved sleep quality, no nighttime discomfort. Questions I frequently encounter. Q. How quickly should I expect results from this protocol? A. I noticed initial improvements within 5 to 7 days, primarily from the magnesium and morning water routine. Full normalization of transit time and stool consistency required approximately 21 days. The microbiome adaptations from prebiotic fiber take the longest, as bacterial populations shift gradually. I recommend implementing the protocol systematically and tracking your progress with the Bristol stool scale. Q. Can I implement all 8 mechanisms simultaneously? A. I recommend staged implementation over 2 to 3 weeks. Begin with hydration timing and magnesium, week 1. Add bile support and posture modifications, week 2. Then introduce probiotics and prebiotic fiber, week 3. This allows you to identify which interventions provide the greatest benefit and prevents the bloating that can occur with sudden fiber increases. Q. Should I discontinue this protocol once constipation resolves? A. The interventions I described address root causes rather than providing temporary symptom relief. Once you achieve regularity, You may simplify the protocol to maintenance levels. I continue with the morning water routine, magnesium, probiotics, and meal timing indefinitely because they support overall gut health beyond constipation prevention. Q. Is this protocol safe with gallbladder removal? A. Yes, with modification. Without a gallbladder, bile flows continuously rather than being stored and released in response to fat. The ox bile supplementation becomes more important, 500 milligrams with each fat-containing meal. And the olive oil and lemon morning routine still provides benefit through bile acid receptor stimulation in the intestine. Q. What if I experience loose stools after starting this protocol? A. Temporary loosening indicates the protocol is working. You may need to reduce magnesium citrate dosage to 200 to 300 milligrams until your system adapts. The goal is type 4 on the Bristol scale, smooth and soft, not type 5 or 6, soft blobs or mushy. Titrate magnesium to achieve optimal consistency. Conclusion: hard stools and constipation are not inevitable consequences of aging or genetics. They represent treatable dysfunctions in intestinal physiology that respond to targeted intervention. The 8 mechanisms I outlined address the complete picture: osmotic hydration, bile flow, microbiome composition, electrolyte balance, probiotic modulation, prokinetic stimulation, mechanical factors, and circadian optimization. My transit time improved from 72 hours to 18 hours. My Bristol stool scale score normalized from type 1 to type 4. My morning bowel movements became as predictable as sunrise. These results came not from pharmaceutical intervention, but from understanding and supporting the body's natural mechanisms. As a genetics professor studying metabolic regulation, I have access to the clinical literature that most people never see. What I've shared today represents the synthesis of that research combined with rigorous self-experimentation. The protocol works because it addresses root causes rather than masking symptoms. Your gastrointestinal system wants to function optimally. It simply requires the correct inputs: adequate magnesium, sufficient bile flow, diverse prebiotic fiber, appropriate hydration, beneficial bacteria, prokinetic stimulation, proper positioning, and aligned circadian rhythms. Provide these inputs consistently, and the system responds. The transformation I experienced in 21 days is available to anyone willing to implement these mechanisms systematically. Your cells retain the biological programming for optimal function. This protocol simply provides the conditions for that programming to express itself.